So, is paying for professional financial planning really worth it? This is one question I've gotten a lot in my career, and my answer might actually surprise you because it's not always yes. When you look at the numbers, fewer than 10% of adults in the UK have ever paid for professional financial advice or planning, and there simply aren't enough advisors to go around either for those that do want help. So, do you actually need advice? Or are you about to spend hundreds, even thousands of pounds on something that won't move the needle for you? When is it really truly worth it? Well, I've spent years looking at what actually makes a difference to people's finances. And in this video, I'll walk you through 5 times you don't need a financial advisor, explain when going it alone is perfectly fine, and also when it's really worth paying for proper advice. Let's start off by clarifying a common misconception. A lot of people use the terms advice and guidance interchangeably, but in financial terms, there's a really key distinction between what is guidance and what is advice. If you look on unbiased.co.uk, one of the UK's largest directories of financial advisors, they tackle this topic quite well with some relatable and some slightly bizarre examples. I don't know anyone that would give that level of detail to someone asking where the toilet is, but let's not digress. In essence, it's the difference between just needing some generic information about something, for example, what is an ISA and how does it work, versus whether or not an ISA is suitable for you and your circumstances. If you're just looking to improve your overall financial literacy, get yourself up to speed with the basics on topics such as ISAs, or maybe just get a level of understanding on how pensions work, for example, there are lots of great free resources out there, and you'd be better following this route than paying for the time of a financial advisor. The challenge is making sure the information you're getting is from a good and reliable source. I'd stay away from forums and the like, which are littered with emotionally charged opinions from Dave down the pub, and instead look at something like the Money Helper website, for example. If you navigate across the menu to pensions and retirement, you'll see all sorts of options that you can get more information on, from building your retirement pot to taking your pension. There's lots of solid information on here, so if you're just looking to learn more in general rather than looking for someone to give you personalised recommendations, then don't pay for financial advice. If you're over 50, you can also book a free PensionWise appointment to talk to someone. Again, this will be guidance, not advice, but depending on what you're looking for, could be worthwhile exploring. There's more information on what one of these appointments covers and who is eligible on the website here. Before we move on, if you're in that early stage where you're starting to think ahead to retirement, we've put together a free ebook called Retirement Questions You Must Answer to Retire Happy. It covers the big questions most people don't think about until it's too late. You can grab it for free using the link in the description. If you are just looking for a better interest rate on your cash savings, this is something you are better exploring yourself. You don't need a financial advisor's input here. I recommend all my clients have a cash emergency fund, a readily accessible pot of cash that they can access without notice or penalty. How much that should be depends on the circumstances, but a good rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses. As far as finding the best interest rate for this cash, I leave that up to my clients or signpost them to some comparison websites like Money Saving Expert. A financial advisor won't have access to better rates than you can find yourself with a bit of research. I also suggest that if people have plans to spend their savings on something within the next 5 years, staying in cash is actually a sensible thing to do, despite the lower returns available, as looking at investing into something that could fluctuate in value like the stock market is too unpredictable over the short term. And given your capital is at risk here, it's not a smart move if you know you need that money back soon. Just a word of warning here, though. Remember, cash is not a good long-term investment. Life gets more and more expensive year on year as inflation erodes away the purchasing power of your cash. So if you're thinking about retirement planning or other longer-term objectives, you would be wise to explore other opportunities for your money. And this is where seeking out advice might be hugely valuable. Remember, there's no such thing as no risk when making any decisions with our money. Instead, we simply have to choose which risks we're comfortable with taking. Next is the one that I've probably struggled with the most over the years, and actually the reason this YouTube channel was created in the first place. Imagine you're at the start of your investing journey and you've got your budget down and you've carved out £100 a month to start investing, and then a quick Google shows you that the average cost for investment advice is nearly £1,000. This could be a barrier to you starting on that investing journey when all you might actually need is a bit of education and knowledge around how to best get started. I really wish that finance, investing, and basic good money principles were on the national curriculum and part of our education. That would go a long way to solve this advice gap. But until that comes along, you're left using books and the internet to build up this knowledge, which is not without its challenges given the amount of dodgy information out there. For example, for this person starting out, it might be as simple as making sure they're in their company pension scheme where appropriate, and if they've got some spare money they want to invest in addition to this, a stocks and shares ISA invested in a well-diversified fund or handful of funds would do a good job. The caveat to all of this is there truly are many people that without sitting in front of someone and being given a polite nudge in the right direction would never invest, no matter how many articles they read or YouTube videos they consume. And for those people, even starting out, there is an argument to say paying for advice would still be a worthwhile investment if this would be the difference between them starting or simply never getting round to it, especially given that it could start them on a trajectory of decades of investing. And we all know the earlier you start, the better the likely outcome will be. Now, our next one brings us to the opposite side of the spectrum. It may be the case that depending on where you're at and your level of experience and knowledge, you could achieve what you're looking for by yourself. The question, of course, becomes whether or not you can do as good a job as if you had someone who does it full-time for a living helping you. But I'm not out here proclaiming to be a genius by any stretch, or to be the only one with the answers. I have had many conversations with potential clients where I've told them to keep doing what they're doing and they don't need me. Yet, anyway. Say, for example, we've got someone who's got a great income, no expensive debt, a healthy emergency fund, they're maxing out their company pension contributions, and not only that, they've actively actually had a look at the investment options in the company pension outside of the default investment fund. And let's say they're already investing every month into their stocks and shares ISA in a globally diversified portfolio, then it's fair to say they're on the right track. There may well be still improvements a good advisor could add if, like me, they're independent and can view the whole of the market and so on, but the value they can add is much smaller to this situation than someone who isn't doing all of this stuff already. However, accumulation is much easier than decumulation. Like in that example, once you get into those good habits, all that person needs to do is keep that income coming in and keep on investing and avoid bad emotional decisions along the way. Decumulation is a totally different beast altogether. Retiring and spending from your pot comes with tax planning and complications around accessing pensions in different ways, and it can really start to muddy the water. Here's where great advice and planning can be worth its weight in gold, and why we focus so much on this channel on retirement planning. Right, I need to explain what I mean with this last one, and I can use a very recent conversation I had with a new client as an example. When I'm talking to a potential new client in our first conversation, my main objective is to really get to the bottom of what they want out of the process to see if working with me is a good fit for both of us. And I usually do this by asking the following question. Those of you watching that have already spoken to me might recognize this. If we could fast forward 5 years from now, what would have had to have happened for you to look back and feel like working with me was a fantastic decision and one you were so pleased you made? I asked this question to someone just a few weeks ago and their response was revealing. They said, you would have had to make me a better return than if I'd carried on investing by myself. Any advisor you speak to that promises you outstanding returns run a mile. The one thing that I simply cannot control are the markets. I have no idea what return you might get over the next month, 6 months, even the next few years. Zoom out further and ask me if I'm confident of your results over 10 years plus, then I'll give you a much more confident answer. All that being said, however, there are, of course, what I would consider smart ways to invest and less smart ways to invest. I have an investment philosophy which I carry through to my planning business, which is, I believe in 2 main principles. Firstly, diversification to manage risk, or in other words, don't have all your eggs in one basket. And secondly, keeping costs low by using index funds to track markets rather than expensive active funds trying to beat them. Outside of these core principles, markets will do what markets will do. I can set you up for the best chance of success, but anyone that claims to have a more magic touch should be seen as a massive red flag. So in the case of this client, I told him there were tweaks I would suggest to how he was investing, but I cannot promise better returns, and that's not how he should measure the success of our relationship. My job is to put people in an overall better position than if they hadn't engaged with me. And that's not just financially. It's helping people live a life well lived. Using financial planning to give people peace of mind on when they can retire, make sure they're drawing the income in the most tax efficient way possible, helping them navigate through life's curveballs and changes to the rules as they happen, and most importantly, encouraging them to have the best retirement ever. And if you've listened to all 5 points and none of them sound like you, chances are your finances are getting more complex, and that's exactly when proper planning starts to matter. We offer a quick, no-pressure retirement call where we walk you through one question. Are you actually on track for retirement? By the end, you'll know if you're fine on your own or if advice could actually save you time, tax and stress. Links below to book that call. So now you know the 5 signs of when you might not need a financial advisor, and maybe that's a relief. But even if you're going it alone, there's something else you should watch out for. The habits that slowly wreck people's retirement plans without them even noticing. In fact, most of these habits don't feel dangerous until it's too late to fix them. So watch this video next where I break down the 6 money habits silently ruining your retirement.